Hello, it's time for Combat Patrol Carnage. So I've had a sort of progressive week off. I've got my kill team stuff built, sorted and started painting. So we can move back to Combat Patrol magazine, and today we're kicking off issue 52 and it's the start of our Leagues of Votann with our HQ model, the Kahl. So yeah, fantastic little model, going to be the center for our Votann force. Very awesome model, very stoic sort of pose, pistol in one hand, power fist in the other. So inside the magazine we have our build guide, followed by our paint guide, which is a lovely in-depth paint guide on the Kronos hegemony. So looking forward to painting that. I will be doing this issue a little bit different because there is such an in-depth paint guide and very little in the way of lore. I'm going to put build and lore into one video, paint guide, and then we'll play our game with the Kahl. Speaking of, we have a short story, part 13 of Bonds of Honor. We have our Votann character names, plus our battle record for our Kahl. And then we have scenario 32, Bitter Judgment, in which we get to learn the ins and outs of the Votann's special rules, judgment tokens. So this is our Kahl. He comes on a single frame. We've got 3 head options, one for a special character, one helmeted and one barehead. We got the special character's crest there. We got the character, the Kahl crest here. We got an axe, a sword, a storm bolter, the Volkite disintegrator, and the gauntlet there. Awesome tactical rock, some backpack and cabling, and a few other little bits like shoulder pads, ammo, etc. And he comes on a 40mm base, so yeah, pretty cool for the leader of the force. So as I said, I'm going to do things a little bit differently. So today we're going to be building our model and naming him, as well as reading our 1 page of short story. So without further ado, let's head to the table. But before we do, don't forget to, of course, do all the usual. Like this video if you're enjoying the content, subscribe if you haven't done so already and you're new around here. And of course, drop me a comment down below. Love hearing back from you guys. It goes a massive way to help this channel out, and I love hearing about what everyone else is doing in their hobby. Finally then, Combat Patrol Carnage is proudly sponsored by warbay.shop, your one-stop supply for all your hobby needs. They stock everything you need from getting started with your own league to expanding your force with all the important vehicles, units, paints and hobby supplies you need to finish off. They also stock Combat Patrol partwork, so if you're looking for some extra issues to boost your collection, check out. They might just have the one you're looking for at a discount. So check out warbay.shop. There's a link as usual in the video description, and who knows, you might find your next hobby project at a bit of a discount. Right, let's build our Kahl and name him, and then we can read up on Sergeant Askerton. Hello everyone, and here we are with issue 52 for the first time. So we've got our Kahl here. He's 40mm base and he's frame. So yeah, looks a pretty cool model, going together quite nicely. So we've got a nice bit of basing detail here for us to glue down. We've got Utar Destin's personal heraldry here, and then we've got the vein for our actual Kahl. We've got our choice of heads, so you got Utar the Destin's head, and you got the helmeted head or the bare head for the Kahl. We got the Sword of the Ancestors, which is for Utar the Destined. We got the choice of a plasma axe or the Mass Gauntlet. And we'll be using the Gauntlet for the Combat Patrol. And you've got the Vulcanite Disintegrator or the Storm Bolter there as well. And we're going for the Disintegrator for the Combat Patrol. So all in all, it looks pretty cool, and yeah, it should go together quite nicely. So let's adjust the camera. We can dive into the magazine quickly. So I'm going to build this guy up this issue, and then we're also going to cover our few little pages of lore as well. Into the magazine for the first time we go then. So we've got quite a lot to go through. We have our build and paint guides for our Kahl. We have a page for the Bonds of Honor short story with part 13. Then we have our collect article for our Votann characters, which kind of is just this guy at the moment. And then we have a battle record for Kahl. And finally, we get to try this guy out in Bitter Judgment, a nice little scenario where he faces off against some orcs. So, right, our build guide, pretty straightforward. So just follow the guide, get your numbers, clip them out, glue them together, and you can't really go too wrong. So build up the front of the body with his legs, then attach the cloak, the right side of the cloak here with his little honor sword, plus his backpack. We then build up the Vulcanite disintegrator. We then have the power cable, which runs around the side of his cape. We got his Mass Gauntlet. Choice of heads, either the bear head or the helmeted head. We got his left shoulder pad, his vane, and then we got some bits to build up our base before we glue him down. So, right, let's bring our model in and we'll get building. So our first components we want are 4, 5, 6, and 7. His back, front, and legs. So let's cut these all out. So we'll get those cleaned up. So we've got our components. So we need to run our glue along the underside here of his legs. And then we can glue these in place. Get them to line up. A little bit of glue on this half here, so that we can get everything merging together. And finally we got the back half of his torso to go on. And that goes on just like so. Yeah, looking really, really good. Right, we've got some finishing touches. So we got the right side here of his cloak with his little dagger. And we got his backpack to attach. So we'll cut those out, parts 8 and 9. So, bringing in our model then, we want to run glue along his collar here, down the side, along his belt, and then along the part of his coat there, and we can push this into position. There we go, really kind of fiddly. That blends in there quite nicely. On his backpack then, just run a little bit of glue around the outside of this square, and we can push this into place. They should look like that. Up next then, we want his Vulcanite disintegrator, so parts 11 and 17. We'll clean those up and get them glued on. So to glue these together, we just need to put a simple bit of glue on the wrist and back plate there, and on where the cable attaches as well. And then this should all line up. Like so. And then a bit of glue on the inside of his arm, and that should rest in position like that, so sort of down to the side. So next we need the parts of the Mass Gauntlet. So I want this pipe that goes from his power pack around to his front, which is part 10. The two halves of the Mass Gauntlet, 23, 24. And we'll also cut out his head. So we'll go for the armoured head, number 12, and the left shoulder pad, 20 there. So I'll get those cleaned up and we can attach them to our model. So we've got our components. So let's glue the two halves of the Mass Gauntlet together first. So run a glue underneath here and along the underside there. Then we just need to push his finger and thumb into place so that he's pointing out the enemy to gain judgment. So leave that to dry. We glue in the cable, so we need to attach it to this part just here, and then it goes into the bit on his collar just there. So should be that piece there and this piece going in there. There we go. And you can glue his head in, so there's a little bowl just on the inside there. I can lower his head in. We'll have him looking along his fist, I think. Like that. And speaking of his fist, we can glue Mass Gauntlet into position. Like so. And on top we got his shoulder pad. So we've only got a few little bits left to build. So we want his back vein, part 16. And we want the 3 parts to build up his base, 1, 2, and 3. So we'll get those cleaned up and glued down. So we got our components of the base and his little power vein. So this just needs to glue onto the top. Okay, it shows on the instructions to glue it to the back of the power pack, but the finished model, it looks like it goes, yeah, over that there. So there's a little venting area there. It glues in over that. So there we go, that's that finished. So for our base, we take part 1, we run glue along here, and then attach part 2. And then part 3, run glue along there, and there. And that slots in like so. Now we need to try and glue it apparently as centre as possible, so that's as central as possible, I think. So we'll glue all the way around, bottom of the base, throw it onto our magazine. And there, push it into position. So there we can test fit our Kahl, and I don't think it'll be too bad to paint around. I think I will leave them off just for easiness of reaching up underneath. So we'll leave them in sub-assemblies for the moment. And we can move on to what little bits of lore we got to do in this issue. So we'll skip over the paint guide for the moment. And we find ourselves here at part 13 of Bonds of Honor. Brutal orc warriors charge into battle mounted on barely controlled wild beasts. They're squig hog boys. Pretty cool unit for the Well then, my boys, you've been mighty silent for a while. And while I want to take it as a compliment to my skills as an orator, there is a part of me that wonders if you are simply sleepwalking, lulled into slumber by the smoothness of my voice. Let us stop here for a moment. Still silent? Do you all still live? Nicandor? Move a little just to show you haven't died without my noticing. I'm not convinced. Perhaps what I am viewing as merely the action of the wind, I shall watch carefully to see if you start decomposing. You shall not be blamed for your nervousness in the silence of newcomers, of course. But eventually you must find your tongues. How else will you report a danger while on watch? How else will you call for the Emperor's might to drop from the sky when you spot an enemy position in the heat of battle? Some of you may even find your voices as teachers and leaders, schooling the young as I do now. Nicandor, of all the times you could have chosen to pay attention, you rouse yourself at that comment? Do you fancy yourself among the very wise? Well, perhaps you will be eventually. I must confess that I too was once a timid youth, much as you all are now, although I fancy I was much better looking than you all seem to me. Now, we were speaking of Sergeant Askerton and his squad, weren't we? And as usual, I'd managed to leave them in a spot of trouble. So there they were, having weathered the attack of the Orks with more than a few new scuffs on their armour. Something shot down the death copters that had taken flight. As they fell down, their crude engines split and their fuel ignited, sending a wall of flame over the Orks and the Space Marines. Even inside their power armor, they flinched as the maelstrom washed over them. But they were unharmed by it. Bolt rifles rattling, the Silver Templars made short work of the remaining few, who continued to charge astride some strange and fearsome beasts. But as I said before, that left the issue of who had shot down the death copters. For though it may have been a helpful act, it was not necessarily the act of an ally. As the smoke thinned out and the haze of the air cleared, the squad strained their eyes to see who these new arrivals to the field of battle were. The smoke cleared further, and atop a ridge not far away, a handful of figures could be made out. They were either unusually broad, or else they were unusually short, or possibly even some mix of the two. The squad hurriedly discarded their spent and empty magazines and reloaded their weapons, ready to face whoever these newcomers were. But Sergeant Askerton stepped forward. Without looking behind, he headed off, signaling for the others to stay behind. They stayed, but reluctantly. holding the butts of their bolt rifles to their shoulders in readiness, and wondering why they couldn't accompany him. But the newcomers seemed to have the same idea. A single one of them began to walk down from the ridge. They were carrying a weapon of some sort, a rifle perhaps. Brother Mechtras, conservatory sergeant, fixed the figure in his sights. But Brother Heracleon knocked the barrel of his rifle down and hissed a warning. And he was right to do so. Negotiations are tricky enough without the parties feeling threatened, and there is nothing like being in the sights of a bolt rifle to occasion just such a feeling. The squad waited in silence, keeping watch for any signs of threat, whether from the newcomers or from the possibility of a stray orc. But there was nothing. The smoke that had begun to clear now thickened again as some new source of fuel ignited, cloaking the sergeant and his opposite in a black fog. Moments later they were hidden entirely. Minutes passed. Then, without warning, the Vox channel cracked into life in each of their helmets. It was Askerton. "I'm coming back," he said. "Hold your fire." The armor of the Leagues of Votann. The Leagues of Votann wear thick plate armor that has a lot in common with the armor worn by the Space Marines. It provides excellent protection against all types of battlefield hazards, including bolts, plasma and explosions, and more simple weapons like sharp teeth or swords. Some of the kin's armor, such as exo armor, is so heavy that the wearer would be unable to move if it weren't for the servos that are installed at strategic locations around the suit. These small motors kick into action as soon as the wearer starts to move. Other armor, such as the void armor, is light enough to be borne directly by the wearer, often surrounding a flexible void suit that provides atmospheric protection. So there we have it. Sergeant Askerton has just come out of a meeting with a member of the League, carrying possibly something he'd lost. We'll have to wait for the next chapter to find out. Moving on then, we got a couple of pages all about the Kahl and characters of the Leagues. Leadership is a solemn charge, for only through victory can we make good the hopes of our ancestors and add our own stories to theirs. Leagues of Votann characters. The kin are a species of clones, but are just as varied and individual as members of any other species. They are each given a name by the Votann, but will also adopt a second name of their own choosing. Those who are held in high esteem may be given a name by their comrades that they can choose as their second name. So we got battle honours. The kin emerge from the crucibles, fully formed and blessed by the Votann with a given name, but they also select a name of their own, called a chosen name. Some of the most renowned leaders are given new names by those around them they may adopt instead. So we've got three possible chosen names here to choose from. Over this page, we've got a list of grudges, so we can roll to see why a particular faction has disgruntled our Leagues of Votann force. And next up then we have our page for the Kahl. At the forefront of most oath bands stands a Kahl, each exemplary strategist and leader renowned for their martial prowess. They take to the field into the finest weaponry and technology their forges can produce, and their ability to assess enemy threats and identify their weaknesses make them a formidable foe. So as usual, we've got tables to roll on here, so I'll get some paper ready to protect the underside. And we can roll for a name. So our Kahl's given name is, I'll try that again, that's still a 3, Naren. Or Narun, because it's a funny little symbol over the A. So Kahl Narun. And his chosen name is Warhammer. So there we go, we have our Kahl ready for our Leagues of Votann. So we've built him, we'll be painting with him in our next video, and we'll be playing with him in the video after that. So, right, last thing to look at then is our data card for the Kahl. So we'll turn over for our data sheet. So this is our first Leagues of Votann data sheet, and brings us, well, our leader for the leagues. So we have a Kahl who has a movement of 5, toughness of 5, a 3+ save with a 4+ invulnerable, 4 wounds, leadership 7+, and objective control of 1. He's Vulcanite Disintegrator, has devastating wounds, is an 18-inch weapon, 3 attacks, hits on a 2+, strength 5, 0 AP and 1 damage. And his melee weapon is a Mass Gauntlet, which is melee range, 3 attacks, hits on a 3, strength 8, -2 and 3 damage. So pretty effective anti elite infantry sort of weapon. He can attach to the Hearthkin Warriors squad. He has the leader keyword, faction Eye of the Ancestors, and he has a special rule, Grim Efficiency. Once per battle round in your command phase, select an enemy unit visible to this model, they gain a judgment token. We've got his keywords and faction keywords at the bottom here, plus we've got a little bit on judgment tokens. On the back cover, you will find judgment tokens. In your command phase, the Grim Efficiency rule allows your card to give an enemy unit it can see a judgment token to a maximum of 2. While an enemy unit has a judgment token, your Kahl adds 1 to hit rolls when targeting that unit. While they have 2, you can add 1 to hit rolls and 1 to wound rolls when targeting that unit. So if we turn the page, we got our judgment tokens there. Simply cut them out, fold them over in pairs, and then you got double-sided little tokens. So we'll be trying this out in our scenario in our next, well, couple of videos time. But yeah, that's it for this video, and so far issue 52. So I'm going to go off and spray this guy once I've built up the rest of the Hearthkin Warriors from issue 53, as I've been kind of filming these issues back to back. But yeah, we're off to a good start with our Votann, and I'm looking forward to painting this guy in the magazine colour scheme. So there we go. All that's left for me to do is say thank you all very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time for more Combat Patrol Carnage. Goodbye.